It is my principled view that we must be duty and honor bound to operationalize the principles upon which the Charter of the United Nations is based. We must not be guilty of manipulating the Charter to serve our particular or sectional designs and ambitions. The Charter is our set of commandments that must be strictly obeyed by each and every member if international and regional peace is to be maintained. We cannot honestly say today that this is the position in regard to NATO states versus Libya. Whatever political disturbances might have first occurred in Benghazi, the process of mediation and peaceful negotiations was never given full play, as is happening currently in Libya through the blatant, illegal, brutal, callous NATO's murderous bombings. There we see NATO bombing places, seeking, hunting and hounding the children of Khaddafi. Have the alleged sins of the father now visited the sons, the children? Have the children lost their right to life? They are no longer human beings. They are being hunted every day. Or is it because each of them is no longer worth the price of the barrel of oil?
Daniel, so the Russian Prime Minister has effectively lashed out on the operation there in Libya.
Yes, he's made the speech in Denmark and he was very angry. He says that Gaddafi is not the best person in the world. Sure, he's made many mistakes, done many bad things, but that does not give the coalition the right to bomb indiscriminately. His words were that they are bombing Gaddafi's palaces in Tripoli every night. Now, a coalition said that their plan was not to get rid of Gaddafi. So his question was, Mr. Putin's question was, why are the coalition forces obviously making this effort to go after Colonel Gaddafi himself? Now, we also heard that the experts here in Brussels have confirmed that there is bombing going on by the coalition forces, which is not being covered by the media here in the European Union. Mr. Putin added that oil was a key interest for the Western powers, for the European powers who have gone into Libya, that they want to get rid of Gaddafi and install people who are more favourable to the European Union so that European companies can control the oil reserves. Let's have a listen to exactly what Mr. Putin had to say.
The coalition said destroying Gaddafi was not their goal. Then why bomb his palaces? Now some officials have claimed that eliminating him was in fact their goal. Who gave them that right? Did he have a fair trial? Returning to the no-fly zone, the bombings are destroying the country's entire infrastructure. When the so-called civilized world uses all its military power against a small country destroying what's been created by generations, I don't know if that's good.
Now, I've been speaking to military analysts here in Brussels and they confirm that ground troops are already in operation in Libya. This is not being covered by the media in the European Union, but troops are already in operation and they are pushing forward in Libya with Colonel Gaddafi as the target.
After over 20,000 NATO bombing sorties that targeted Libyan towns, including Tripoli, there is now unbelievable and most disgraceful scramble by some NATO countries for Libyan oil, indicating thereby that the real motive for their aggression against Libya was to control and own its abundant fuel resources. What a shame. Yesterday it was Iraq, and Bush and Blair were the liars and aggressors, as they made unfounded allegations of possessions of weapons of mass destruction. This time it is the NATO countries, the liars and aggressors, as they make similarly unfounded allegations of destruction of civilian lives by Khaddafi.
Former US President George Bush and his former counterpart Tony Blair were found guilty of war crimes by the Kuala Lumpur War Crimes Tribunal, which held a 4-day hearing in Malaysia. The 5-panel tribunal unanimously decided that Bush and Blair committed genocide and crimes against peace and humanity when they invaded Iraq in 2003 in blatant violation of international law. The judges ruled that war against Iraq by both the former heads of states was a flagrant abuse of law and an act of aggression which amounted to a mass murder of the Iraqi people.
Bush and Blair are found guilty under the same law that applied to the Nazis after the end of World War II. They are international criminals guilty of Nuremberg crimes against peace, and they should be prosecuted by any state in the world that gets a hold of them. And we will continue our efforts to bring Bush and Blair to justice and put them in jail.
In their verdict, the judges said that the United States, under the leadership of Bush, forged documents to claim that Iraq had weapons of mass destruction. They further said the findings of the tribunal be made available to members of the Rome Statute and the names of Bush and Blair be entered into a war crimes register.
There is also a recommendation that this be circulated to states, because all states have universal jurisdiction, and therefore whenever Bush or Blair appear within their shores, there is an obligation under international law to commit these criminals, international war criminals, through the justice system.
Both Bush and Blair have repeatedly said the so-called war against terror was targeted at terrorists. Lawyers and human rights workers who are present here today say that the verdict by the tribunal is a landmark decision, and the Kuala Lumpur War Crimes Tribunal say that they would persuade and lobby with the International Criminal Court to charge former US President George Bush and former British Prime Minister Tony Blair for war crimes charges. Maheshwari Ramakrishnan, Press TV, Kuala Lumpur.
Mr. President, we in Africa are also duly concerned about the activities of the International Criminal Court, which seems to exist only for alleged offenders of the developing world, the majority of them Africans. The leaders of the powerful Western states guilty of international crime like Bush and Blair are routinely given the blind eye. Such selective justice has eroded the credibility of the ICC on the African continent.
Just to tell you that it's a fake court. Under the table, they are trying to negotiate with us a deal. They said, if you accept this deal, we will take care of the court. What does it mean? It means the court is controlled by those countries which are attacking us every day. It's just to put a psychological and political pressure on us. That's it.